It's a very good one coming from Kunle Afolayan, the prolific filmmaker in Nigeria, when he says, you know, that filmmakers should actually promote African culture, Nigerian culture specifically. I think that's a really good one. And this Omugwo just takes the cake for me.
I know you would. I know you would relate to the Omugwo
yes,
saying
really
the mother-in-law, of course. Well, yes, to what Kunle Afolayan said, that yes, let's sell more of our traditions, our values. There's so much to share to the world that they don't know about Nigeria.
And a lot of our cultures really clean that we need to project out there, and not, you know, all the violence and all the juju.
All the westernization,
taking in Western culture and all of that.
Indeed.
It's a good one. We hope to see more of that. All right. Now let's start off with our first big story.
The outbreak of bacterial cerebrospinal meningitis in parts of northern Nigeria has claimed more than 336 lives in 16 states, including the FCT Abuja.
The northwestern region of the country is the worst hit, with Zamfara state recording the highest number of casualties. Sokoto state also recorded a number of casualties despite efforts put together by the state government to tackle the epidemic. TVC News' Sulaiman Nasser in Sokoto now reports on the impact of the outbreak in the state.
Little Abdul Jalil Nasser may not have committed any sin, but here he is battling to survive the deadly bacteria cerebrospinal meningitis type C that has hit most part of northern Nigeria. Nasser is one of the numerous victims receiving medical attention at one of the isolation camps provided by Sokoto state government toward the curtailing the spread of the disease. The government admitted that there are casualties in the state, but says its swift reaction has helped in keeping the figure extremely low.
I would rather give you figures of lives that we have saved. It's more important to me. We have saved thousands of lives, you know, by way of the rapid response and quick intervention and community mobilization. As at the last count, that was yesterday, we have over 700 cases of suspected meningitis. Those that have been laboratory confirmed, over 60, I think 67. All of them have been treated, and they are also treated, and a lot of them have been discharged.
But in Danchadi, a community bordering the local government area of Sokoto State, where the highest casualties have been recorded, relatives of victims demanded more from government.
Immediately after the morning prayers, the sickness became worse, and we rushed him to the specialist hospital, where we were directed to this isolation center, and drugs were given to us free.
Nigerians have also expressed dismay over government unpreparedness to curtail the outbreak, despite early warnings.
That a country like Nigeria cannot have in its stores vaccines like this is unfortunate. The minister will say that there are over 2,000 outbreaks across the country, and that only 300 have been affected. Nobody seems to be worried that that number is too big.
The Sokoto state government says nothing will be left to chance in its bid to further curtail further spread of the strange type C virus.
One phase now is that of massive vaccination campaign, which we are going to start with the hardest hit local government, which is Bodinga, and then we continue also with prophylaxis across schools, particularly also Almajiri school.
Nigerian government says the sum of $1.1 billion is required for the vaccination of over 22 million persons in the 5 states affected by the type C cerebrospinal meningitis disease outbreak. Sulaiman Nasser, TVC News, Sokoto.
Okay, we're now joined on the phone by Dr. Olaliko Makinde. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Yeah, good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. We hope you are doing fine yourself. Now, an increase within 3 days from 2,997 to 3,959. That's a 1,000 people increase in this particular outbreak. What is responsible for this massive, I mean, do we have an epidemic on our hands already?
Well, the situation is not, it's somehow it's expected, because before the government started taking action, it was already were maybe quite a bit late, like that's very frank, because we started taking action when people were already infected, and so many people were already down. Some people already have the viruses and the bacteria in their system. So by the time you start taking action, they're not able to, and point in outbreak where you are supposed to.
Okay.
Apologies there, Olaleko Makinde, a medical doctor, giving us some perspective now on the rise in cerebral meningitis, cerebrospinal meningitis cases now. And like Ngozi rightly said, from 336 last week, and all of a sudden we had more than 100 fatalities on our hands, so to speak,
really,
with
it's really
an additional 1,000 again now, talking about the suspected cases of this deadly disease.
And it's spreading further, I mean, from 16 states, which is bad enough, 16 out of 36 states, and now you have 19 states affected, including Lagos. My concern is for Lagos State, for example, a state of more than 20 million people. One case of meningitis might be
it's alarming enough
to really, set the antennas really
right.
high. What are the proactive measures we're putting in place to ensure that this does not go out or get out of hand?
All right, Dr. Makinde is back.
Thanks
a lot for being reachable, of course, thanks to the network, of course. But you were saying now that perhaps a failure on the part of authorities to tackle this head-on might have, resulted to this sharp rise in fatalities and suspected cases of meningitis.
Like I was saying, we have a very weak health system. That's where we should go to. At the moment, when this outbreak started off, I was talking about vaccine and all that. But the issue is that in most of those states, there are no adequate facilities, there are no drugs, there are no manpower to be able to tackle this with already down with the disease. So these are the issues that are showing up. So once you are trying to attack an epidemic and you don't have the required facilities and the required manpower and the required leadership that's needed to get it done, then you're going to have more of it. And like we said before, the government is trying to do a lot of things. But the fact is that one of the basic things is more difficult to be able to do as much as you're supposed to do.
Well, what can you tell us about the global vaccine shortfall that was a major source of concern, the outbreak of this disease? What's the situation with that now?
Like it's been reported, we know that already with more than 400 and all that, I still have more people coming down in this for this. So that the way that's on its own and the whole problem with that straightforward. The fact that would get.
We seem to still be having that problem with connection. Let's hope we can reconnect. Okay, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, hopefully we would get this fixed. Stay with us. Okay, in exactly 3 minutes, we'll be bringing you the news update. We're talking about the meningitis outbreak. Of course, remember this particular strain that's broken out in Nigeria, and the rest of the meningitis belt is known as the C strain, and that in itself has created a major challenge for health providers, of course, the Center for Disease Control, and of course, for the victims themselves who may not be getting the kind of vaccine that they actually need. Especially as the vaccines appear not to be enough, but the Center for Disease Control is saying it has already embarked on, a massive supply, and in Zamfara State, that appears to be the highest number now of cases. That's the epicenter there's been an overwhelming response now, people coming out to partake in this vaccine. So yes, we'll see how that goes as the week progresses. Yes,
and again,
indeed.
There's also some allegations now that people are having to pay for these vaccinations, whereas the government is saying it's free. But in some parts of the north, they say they are having to pay, they have to pay 500 being demanded by the vaccination
officials.
That in itself means that government has its job cut out for it. Governments, of course, across the state, need to go out there, let the people know, look, these vaccines are free. If you're asking people to pay 500 naira, why do they need to pay? What value is that going to add? Is it going to make vaccines more available?
Or people just taking advantage of the system.
Exactly, that's the point. And I'm excited about this program in Zamfara. We hear about this reactive vaccination campaign that is ongoing there right now. Of course, Zamfara is the epicenter of this disease. It's affecting Katsina, you have Kebbi, Niger State too, of course, the FCT, and now Lagos State. Hopefully, Lagos always has a way of blazing the trail. And we hope, just like we were able to successfully, tackle Ebola, we can actually deal with this, a death blow before it causes any more problems for us. All right, you're welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's still TVC Breakfast this Monday morning. Still talking meningitis. It is a deadly infection that affects the delicate membranes known as meninges, which cover the brain and spinal cord. It is a viral or bacterial infection and is contagious among people in close contact.
There's also another type of meningitis, and that's the fungal meningitis. It's a rare type of meningitis, generally occurring only in people with weakened immune systems. Nigeria is now on a red alert as the current epidemic of meningitis continues to claim more lives.
Yes, indeed. Now, the first reported outbreak of meningococcal meningitis occurred in West Africa in 1905. That's a long time. Now, the first outbreak happened in Zungeru, northern Nigeria, with 32 known cases before it spread west into northern Ghana and resulted in an estimated 20,000 reported cases. Epidemiologists believe that meningococcal meningitis was brought to northern Nigeria by pilgrims and or soldiers who were infected in the Sudan.
Areas affected by meningitis in Africa are now known as the meningitis belt. Countries within the belt are Benin Republic, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, the Central African Republic, Chad, Cote d'Ivoire, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We also have Ethiopia, Ghana, Mali, Niger, Nigeria here, and Togo.
There's quite a number of countries affected by this disease there. Now, the most widespread outbreaks occurred in 1996 and in the first 11 weeks of 2009. In 1996, 250,000 cases and more than 25,000 deaths were reported. The epidemic was put under control after 3 months. Now, during the first 11 weeks of 2009, more than 24,000 suspected cases were reported and more than 2,000 people died in northern Nigeria and Niger. Of course, that's to the north of the country. In 2015, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, of the Federal Ministry of Health of Nigeria notified WHO of 652 suspected cases of the disease, including 50 deaths. Now, Kemi, when you look at these figures of 2009 and compared to the preceding years, it almost wants to make you feel, look, maybe there is no cause for alarm yet, but that's not to say that we should let down our guard.
Indeed, I think that would be very, very erroneous on our part to think that we have to get to that alarming. I mean, 11,000 deaths in 1996, and then you have almost 1,000 in the following year, 2009. Of course, it makes you think that meningitis has always, been around in Nigeria. We get into it, we get out of it. Officials find a way to combat it at that point, but still the causes
comes back again.
Indeed.
Yeah. All right. The Lagos State government has dispelled reports that 2 people died from cerebrospinal meningitis, or CSM, in the state. The Nigeria Center for Diseases Control had on April the 7th released statistics claiming that 2 lives were lost to the disease in Lagos.
But Commissioner for Health, Dr. Jide Idris, joined us earlier on the news here in our Lagos studio to clear the air.
Generally, you have 2 types of meningitis, the epidemic type and the non-sporadic type. From time to time, you see cases of meningitis in Lagos, in hospitals, any part of the country, but that is not the epidemic type.
Okay.
Now, this particular one is caused by the strain, the organism called Neisseria meningitidis. But usually in this country, especially the meningitis belt, is caused by type A. But this particular is caused by type C, which is very unusual. And the reason being that we were not prepared for this type C. As at now, we don't have any case of meningitis caused by this type C. It doesn't mean that you don't see sporadic cases of meningitis caused by different organisms depending on the age group and that kind of thing. But for this epidemic strain, we've not got any case in Lagos now.
Lagos Commissioner of Health there, Dr. Jide Idris, refuting claims that Lagos now has 2 cases of people dying from the cerebrospinal meningitis.
But he's saying clearly that it is not as a result of this particular C strain. So what are we to make of that?
Indeed. I guess that bit raises some more questions, which the Lagos state government will have to clear. What cases do they have if it's not the C strain, which appears to be a bit more worse than the other meningitis strains? But let's move on now with further information on this meningitis scourge, if I may use that word. The World Health Organization is saying the epidemic mainly affects children between the ages of 5 to 14, and that they are responsible for about half of all reported cases.
The World Health Organization, that's the WHO, says fatality rate of 15% has been reported from 40 government areas, that's local government areas, in 5 states of Nigeria since December 2016. And states like Zamfara, Katsina and Sokoto account for 89% of these cases. The common symptoms of meningococcal meningitis include a stiff neck, fever, headaches, delirium, and light sensitivity. About 20% of meningitis survivors have brain damage, hearing loss, and or mental retardation. That's a quick look at giving you a background of this particular outbreak of meningitis. Of course, we hear that $1.1 billion billion dollars required to actually tackle this particular outbreak. I don't know if I heard right. Was it billion or million?
Maybe million. If it's Nigeria, then it might be safe to say it's within the range of $1 million, or it could be more than that.
It could actually be more than that. And of course, the doctor we're talking with earlier, Dr. Olalekon, said, look, the major challenge is the weakness of our health system. It continues to remain weak over time. And you've heard people who say, look, government officials go out there to treat themselves for headache only, things as simple as headache. No wonder they will not invest and ensure that our health system is, can actually compare with the best, in the world. We really do hope that they can sit up and wake up to it.
Absolutely, Ngozi. So much to say about the meningitis disease now, where we're having more than 430 cases of fatalities, of people now dying basically from the disease, with, of course, almost 4,000 suspected cases of meningitis. We'll see how it goes as the week progresses.
All right, let's take another break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at the Naira. Why is the dollar holding firm against the Naira with all of CBN's interventions in the past few weeks? Stay with us.